The galaxy was full of light, but that night, Earth's skies looked darker than ever. From orbit, the blue planet appeared peaceful. Yet deep inside the Terran assembly hall, there was no peace. Admirals, diplomats, and scientists stood in silence as the final transmission was prepared. The words were few, but the meaning behind them could end civilizations. For months, humanity had been sending warnings. They had asked politely, reasoned logically, even pleaded for peace across hundreds of star systems. Their messages had reached every council, every emperor, every arrogant admiral who thought Earth was weak. And each time the reply was the same: laughter. They mocked humanity's emotional speeches, calling them the voice of a desperate species. But desperation was not what moved humanity. It was control. The Dominion fleets had crossed the Terran borders again. A medical convoy on its way to Europa Station had been vaporized. Over 3,000 civilians gone. The Dominion called it a training error, but everyone knew it wasn't. The galaxy had grown used to bullying younger races. It forgot that humanity was not young anymore. They had survived extinction, rebuilt their planet from ashes, and learned to master silence. Now that silence was cracking inside the assembly. Commander Alara Vance stood at the center of the chamber. Her uniform bore no decorations, but her eyes carried the weight of 1,000 lost souls. She spoke softly, but every word shook the air. Send the message. Technicians turned to their consoles across every human-controlled relay. A signal pulsed outward. It traveled through the deep void. Faster than light through the Nexus grid. The entire galaxy heard it. The message was only 12 words long. End your attacks, or our courtesy ends here. Every race, every fleet, every empire received it. But instead of fear, they responded with arrogance. The Dominion High Council released a public statement within hours. They called humanity's warning a childish threat. They even broadcast a recording of their admirals laughing. And in that laughter, they sealed their fate on Earth. The assembly watched the broadcast in silence. No one spoke, no one moved. Even the planetary defense AI stopped its normal operations. As if waiting for something, Alara Vance closed her eyes and whispered, "So be it." Beneath the oceans of Earth, in the Mariana Trench, a shadow began to stir. It was older than any starship in service, built in secret before humanity ever joined the Galactic Union. Codenamed Leviathan, it was humanity's last courtesy. It was not made for diplomacy, but for reminders. At the same time, across Luna, Mars, and Titan, hidden silos came alive. Encrypted codes unlocked themselves after decades of silence. Thousands of orbital defense platforms powered up. For centuries, humanity had pretended to be part of the galactic community. But now the mask was falling. News networks across the galaxy reported the human message as an act of madness. Commentators mocked the tone. Alien politicians called for sanctions. But far from the noise of the media, fleets began to vanish from the Dominion's borders. Their last transmissions were nothing but static. On the Dominion homeworld of Vareth, Admiral Kor laughed as he watched the reports. He didn't believe the humans could reach that far. To him, humanity was still a planet of dreamers, builders, traders, not warriors. But as he laughed, a sudden tremor rippled through the planetary network. Unknown signals appeared across their orbital defense grid. One by one, satellites went dark. Then an eerie silence filled the command center. The kind of silence that speaks louder than war. The first Dominion world to fall wasn't attacked, it was erased. A sphere of light appeared above their northern continent for just 3 seconds. When it vanished, half the planet was gone. No fire, no explosion, only dust and silence. The galaxy watched in terror. No ship had been seen, no weapon detected, only the echo of something immense, something ancient. And the message replayed once more, now across every open frequency. Our courtesy has ended. Every admiral, every emperor, every being who had once laughed at humans, now felt their blood freeze. It wasn't just the power of humanity's weapons, it was the precision of their restraint. They had waited, warned, and hoped for peace, but when ignored, they didn't rage, they calculated. They had become something far more terrifying than any alien empire could understand. As the last of the transmission faded, Commander Alara Vance stood before the silent assembly and said quietly, "Now they'll listen." Outside, the night sky shimmered with hidden fleets rising from the oceans. Massive silhouettes that had been sleeping for generations began to move, each one bearing the mark of Earth and the name of forgotten legends, dauntless. Vigil, Soul's Wrath, they were not built for conquest. They were built to remind the galaxy what happens when humanity stops being polite. The era of courtesy had ended, and the era of consequence had just begun. The first retaliation, the galaxy had fallen silent. No new transmissions came from the Dominion fleets. No trade convoys reported movement across the border zones. And yet in the void between the stars, something unseen was already rewriting history. Commander Alara Vance stood on the command bridge of Leviathan. Deep beneath the Pacific Ocean, the vessel had once been a myth. A rumor whispered among Terran officers who had seen too much. Now it was awake, alive, and connected to every hidden defense node across the Sol system. Screens flickered with incoming reports. Mars confirmed full readiness. Titan Station confirmed orbital alignment. And the old Earth fleet, once disbanded, was reforming silently in the shadows. Authorization code Black Dawn, Alara said quietly. Her voice was calm, steady, the kind of calm that precedes a storm, across the control decks. Her officers didn't cheer. They only nodded, because they understood what was about to begin for years. The galaxy had underestimated the human fleet. Their ships were smaller, their reactors weaker, their designs humble. What the aliens didn't know was that every visible Terran ship was just a mask. Hidden behind the outer defense rings were machines older, larger, and far beyond anything the galaxy had classified. Projects buried under false names, erased from history after the Great War. Now those names returned one by one: Atlas, Erebus, Spectre, Blacklight in the Dominion capital. Admiral Kor tried to contact his border fleets. Every signal he sent disappeared into static. He cursed the human communication jammers, unaware that there were no jammers. There were no signals left because there were no fleets left. The first retaliation came quietly. On the edge of the Orion Belt, a Dominion supply world called Vereen stopped transmitting. The planet had a population of 9 billion. When an investigation fleet arrived, all they found was a black sphere where the planet used to be. Its core had been folded inward, crushed by something beyond their science. There was no explosion, no radiation, only silence. The Dominion Council demanded answers. Their scientists claimed it was impossible. Their priests called it divine punishment, and their spies finally sent a report that chilled the room to its core. It was human technology. No one spoke for a long time then. The Emperor of the Dominion slammed his hand on the table and shouted, "Find them, destroy them, erase their planet." But even as he spoke, humanity had already moved beyond defense. The Leviathan had surfaced, its hull splitting the dark ocean like a rising mountain. Thousands gathered along the coasts of Earth, watching the sea boil under the ship's engines. It didn't launch missiles, it didn't fire beams, it simply vanished. Its jump signature was unlike any other, silent, cold, absolute. The Dominion believed humanity could not cross the galactic void so fast. That assumption died within hours. Because at that same moment, in 5 different star systems, Dominion fleets began to vanish, not destroyed in battle, but erased, gone without trace. Their command logs ended mid-sentence, and in each place, a single transmission appeared on their frequencies. "This is for the convoys, for the medics, for the silence you forced us into." Each word was delivered with calm precision. There was no anger, no shouting, just clarity. That was the most terrifying part. Humanity's wrath wasn't loud anymore. It was surgical, exact, and without mercy. Across the galactic networks, panic spread. The other empires, once laughing, now sent emergency envoys to Earth, but Earth was done talking. The assembly didn't respond. The diplomats were silent. The only thing anyone could hear was the low hum of something vast moving through deep space. In a hidden chamber on Luna, the Terran High Command activated Protocol Revenant. It was a doctrine written 2 centuries ago. Never meant to be used, it stated, "If humanity's courtesy fails, the galaxy shall remember us not as victims, but as consequence." And consequence had arrived. Every Dominion shipyard began to fall offline. Their AI cores were overwritten by ghost code. That code had one origin: Earth. The same world they had mocked for being primitive on the 7th day. The Dominion Emperor tried to surrender. He ordered all remaining fleets to retreat and called for peace. But humanity didn't answer. Instead, a final transmission echoed across the galaxy. It wasn't spoken by humans, but by the Assembly's synthetic envoy, a machine voice calm as winter. "You were warned again and again. Courtesy was your shield, you broke it now. We finish what you began." In orbit above Vareth, The Dominion's capital, hundreds of silver objects appeared. They didn't look like ships. They looked like stars falling from heaven, each one released a single pulse of light. And within moments, every weapon, every defense grid, every palace and fortress went silent. The Emperor watched from his balcony as the sky turned white. He whispered in disbelief, "We thought they were weak." The pulse faded, and the world went dark from Earth's control room. Ilara Vance turned away from the monitor. Her voice was quiet but unshakable. "This was the first retaliation, we warned them." They laughed. Now they will remember. The war hadn't ended. It had only begun. But in that silence, one truth became clear across the galaxy. Humanity didn't seek revenge, they sought justice. And their justice was absolute. The Ghost Fleet appears for a week, the galaxy burned in silence. No official broadcasts came from the Dominion. No signals, no trade routes. No command posts, just static echoing through the stars. World after world went dark, leaving behind questions that no one dared to ask. From the shadows, rumors began to spread. Some said the humans had summoned machines made of dark matter. Others whispered that Earth had found a way to bend time itself. But the truth was something far older and far more terrifying. In the deep black between stars, they moved unseen. The Ghost Fleet, a name long erased from the Terran archives, known only in myths told among the old Earth admirals. It was said to be a fleet that never officially existed, built during the silent years after the First Contact War, created not for invasion, but for retribution. Each ship was a ghost in every sense of the word, invisible to sensors, silent to communications. Their hulls shimmered with cloaked nanomatter that bent starlight itself. They had no flags, no call signs, only a mark carved on their command towers. The sigil of Earth. Surrounded by 13 stars, Commander Ilara Vance stood aboard Leviathan, watching as the Ghost Fleet emerged from folded space one by one. The black ships appeared like shadows breaking through a dream. They did not roar or flash. They arrived with quiet purpose. Her voice trembled not with fear but awe. They answered the call. Across the galaxy, Dominion outposts reported impossible sightings. Entire fleets appearing and disappearing within seconds, their sensors showed nothing. But their ships vanished from existence. In one system, a Dominion dreadnought disappeared mid-transmission. The captain's last words were heard across 5 channels. They're inside the hull, how? The galaxy's most advanced scanners could not trace them. The Dominion's command AI calculated zero probability for what was happening. Yet their worlds kept falling in less than 48 hours. 9 strategic systems were neutralized, and in every case, a single phrase appeared on their data logs. Ghosts remember. The Galactic Council convened in panic. Representatives from 100 species gathered, shouting over one another. Some demanded a joint attack on Earth. Others begged for peace before the same fate reached them. But before they could decide, the chamber lights flickered. The holographic screens filled with static, and a human face appeared, calm and unblinking. It was not Ilara, it was an AI projection. Its voice was smooth, emotionless, but carried the weight of judgment. We asked for peace. We were ignored, we asked for reason. We were mocked now. We speak in silence. The Ghost Fleet has awakened, and silence is all that will remain. Every delegate froze. Even the great warlord of Threx, known for never bowing, lowered his eyes, because everyone in that room understood one truth. You cannot negotiate with ghosts. Back on Earth, people watched the distant stars glow faintly red in the night sky. No one cheered, no one celebrated victory. They only watched, knowing that each light fading meant a world learning the price of arrogance. Children asked their parents what was happening, and the parents whispered softly, "Courtesy has ended." Meanwhile, on the Dominion remnants, Admiral Kor, who once mocked humanity, sat in silence aboard his crippled flagship. His communications officers were gone, his fleet reduced to drifting wrecks. He had seen them, shapes moving through space. Dark, endless, silent. His sensors showed no heat. No mass, no drive signatures, yet they were there. One passed so close to his ship that it blotted out the stars. Its hull shimmered like a mirror of night, and across its side, a single word was written in Terran glyphs. Remember. His crew watched in terror as their engines died. Every screen turned black, every system failed. And then, for just a second, a voice whispered through the comms. Not mechanical, not hostile, just calm. You could have listened. Then the ship vanished, erased without explosion or debris. Only the whisper remained in the comms, looping endlessly. You could have listened. Back on Leviathan, Commander Alara received confirmation. The Ghost Fleet had completed Phase 1. No human ship had been lost. No casualties reported. Her second-in-command looked at her, unsure whether to celebrate or mourn. They'll call us monsters, he said quietly. Ilara turned her gaze to the stars, her expression unreadable. Then let them. If it keeps them from ever trying this again, as she spoke, the holographic screen behind her lit up with thousands of red markers. Each one was a Dominion fortress, each one targeted for elimination. And one by one, the red lights began to fade. No sound, no war, just silence across the galaxy. Ancient archives began updating themselves. For the first time in 10,000 years, a new classification appeared in the Galactic Codex. It read simply, Humanity, Class Omega Species, engage with caution. And beneath it, in smaller text, not because they are cruel, but because they are patient. As the last Dominion world went dark, the Ghost Fleet didn't return to Earth. They didn't need to. Their purpose was not conquest, it was memory, a reminder carved into the heart of the galaxy that when humanity warns you once, you listen. Because the second time, you won't hear anything at all. The stars shone dimly above, and for the first time in 1,000 years, the galaxy understood what silence truly meant. The last Dominion, the Dominion was dying. What had once been an empire stretching across 500 star systems was now reduced to fragments. Every world that had once carried its proud banner now burned silently under black skies. The survivors drifted among the stars like ghosts, hiding from the very thing they once mocked. On the shattered world of Vareth Prime, once the Dominion's capital, a small council gathered underground. Their faces were pale, eyes hollow, their robes stained with soot and despair. Among them stood Admiral Kor, scarred and shaken. He had seen what the others still doubted. The Ghost Fleet was not myth, it was death given form. We can't fight what we can't see, Kor said, his voice breaking. They erase entire worlds before our scanners even blink. The Dominion's prime scholar, a frail creature with silver skin and trembling hands, spoke softly. There must be logic. Nothing acts without reason, but even logic had failed them. They had calculated 1,000 possible responses from humanity. They had planned for retaliation. They had never imagined extinction carried out with surgical silence. Far above, in orbit of Vareth's broken moon, something stirred. The wreckage of old Dominion warships floated quietly, until a shadow passed through them, a shape the size of a mountain. No engines, no sound, no signature, just a void that swallowed light. The survivors on the surface looked up, and hope died in their eyes. Kor turned to the council. We must strike back, or we die crawling. With what fleet? Another shouted, we have nothing left. But Kor wasn't looking for ships. He pointed toward a massive structure carved deep under the planet's crust. It was the Dominion's oldest secret, the core of Dominion, a massive energy sphere left behind by the ancients who founded their species. It was forbidden to activate, for even they didn't know what would happen if it woke. Desperation silenced fear, the council agreed. They would awaken the core. If humanity had ghosts, they would summon gods. Deep below the planet's crust, machines older than memory came alive. Blue light filled the caverns, the core pulsed, its surface covered in alien runes that glowed brighter with every heartbeat. The planet trembled. Core stood at the control altar, his voice trembling, power levels rising. Contain, he never finished. The core exploded, not outward but inward. The energy collapsed in on itself, twisting gravity and space into a single blinding point. For 1 second, every Dominion sensor across the galaxy detected the impossible. A wormhole forming on its own, aimed directly toward Sol. But before they could react, the wormhole vanished, and with it Vareth Prime was gone, not destroyed, not shattered, gone as if it had never existed. Back in the Sol system, alarms blared aboard Leviathan. Commander Alara Vance stared at the readings in disbelief. The Dominion just erased their own capital. No, replied her AI officer calmly. Something else took it, Alara frowned. Took it? The AI displayed a shifting black void on the main screen. It pulsed faintly as if breathing. The energy signature matches our early quantum experiments from the Nexus era, it said, except amplified 1,000 times suddenly. A whisper echoed across the comms, faint and almost human. We woke it up. The crew froze. The voice wasn't coming from any Dominion signal. It was coming from within their own systems. The Ghost Fleet's command link began to distort. For the first time, the invisible ships flickered into partial view, their cloaks faltering, their hulls glowing faintly red. "What's happening?" Alara demanded. "The Dominion triggered something ancient," the AI replied. "And it's reaching through the same void our technology draws power from." Ilara's eyes widened, because she knew what powered the Ghost Fleet. It wasn't just reactors or antimatter. It was something humanity had discovered long ago, and never spoken of, a force beyond time. The memory of every human life lost in war, conscious energy drawn from sacrifice guided by will. The Dominion's core had awakened that force on the other side. Now it was coming for them both. In the darkness beyond the stars, a tear in space began to widen through it. Colossal figures of light and shadow moved slowly. Not ships, not life forms, something older. Entities that had witnessed the birth of galaxies. The same beings humanity's ancestors had glimpsed in their dreams, and humanity's technology, unknowingly built upon their echoes, had called them again. Alara took a deep breath. "So this is the price of ending courtesy," she whispered. "They've woken the old ones." The Ghost Fleet halted in formation, every ship turning toward the expanding rift. They weren't preparing to attack, they were preparing to contain. Humanity had gone from Avenger to Guardian once again. Alara opened a direct channel to every fleet, her voice steady and calm. "We began this war to remind the galaxy of our strength. Now we must remind it of our duty. The Dominion has broken the seal, and if we fail, there will be no stars left to save." The fleet engines ignited as one. Thousands of ghost ships vanished into the rift, leaving only silence behind across the galaxy. The other races watched and trembled, because for the first time, they saw not the wrath of humanity, but their burden. They had thought humans were destroyers. Now they realized humanity was something far worse to provoke. The guardians of the cosmic balance, the ones who kept the darkness from crossing over. And as the rift dimmed, a single message echoed through every star network, a voice older than time itself. Soft and human, courtesy is gone, but mercy remains. Do not test it again. The return of the light. The galaxy held its breath. For the first time in recorded history, every star network went dark. Every relay, every beacon, every signal was silent, and in that silence, the sky itself began to change in the deep void beyond known space. The Ghost Fleet drifted before the rift. The tear in reality glowed like a dying sun, swirling with colors that had no name. From within came shapes, vast, ancient, and radiant. Each movement bent gravity, twisted light, and made entire planets tremble. Commander Alara Vance stood upon Leviathan's bridge. Her reflection shimmered in the glass as the rift's light washed across her face. Her heart was calm because she finally understood. Humanity had not been chosen by the stars. They had chosen to guard them. "Report," she whispered. Her AI answered in a voice that seemed softer now. "All ghost units in formation. Energy containment fields holding. Temporal resonance stable for now." Alara nodded slowly. Behind her, a dozen officers watched the rift expand, their faces lit by the glow of eternity itself. They weren't soldiers anymore, they were witnesses. From the other side, a voice began to echo through the void. It wasn't language, it was emotion, a sound that spoke directly into the mind. Regret, sorrow, hunger, and something deeper. A memory of when the universe was still forming. "They remember us," Alara murmured. "They are the echoes," the AI replied, "born from the same energy we used to power the Ghost Fleet." Then came the realization that shook every human soul. The energy that humanity had harnessed, the core of their hidden strength, was alive. Every lost human, every soldier, explorer, scientist who had died reaching the stars. Their essence had become light within the void. They had never been gone, only waiting. The rift pulsed once, then again. The entities began to shift, their forms growing softer, brighter. They weren't coming to destroy, they were answering a call made by humanity's courage, not their wrath. Alara stepped closer to the viewport. Her voice carried through every open channel across the galaxy. "To all species who hear this, humanity has made its choice. We will hold the line. We will close the rift. But remember this day. Remember why courtesy existed. It was never weakness. It was mercy. She placed her hand on the control sphere, and deep within Leviathan the ancient systems began to hum. Every ghost ship mirrored the signal, linking through the same network that once powered their weapons. Now that energy turned inward, pure and blinding. Each vessel became a star of its own, radiating warmth instead of destruction. "Initiate return of the light," Alara commanded. Across the cosmos, watchers saw the impossible. Thousands of faint glows appearing in the black void. The ghost fleet was burning itself away, not in defeat, but in transformation. Their reactors converted matter to light, and their light began to weave across the rift like threads of dawn. The ancient entities halted. They turned their colossal gaze toward humanity's fleet, and for the first time they bowed, as if acknowledging something greater than power. Understanding. One final transmission echoed across every channel. Not mechanical, not human, but something between the two. A whisper carried by a billion voices, "You kept the fire." Then the rift imploded. A wave of pure light spread outward, filling the darkness with brilliance. Stars that had died long ago flickered back to life. Frozen worlds thawed. Ruined systems glowed once more. And where the ghost fleet had stood, there was now only a constellation. 13 bright stars forming the symbol of Earth. The galaxy would never forget that sight. From that day onward, no race dared to call humanity weak again. They didn't fear humans for their weapons anymore. They feared their will, their compassion, their silence. Because when humanity finally acted, it wasn't to conquer, but to restore on Earth. The oceans calmed. Children looked up at the night sky and saw new stars shining. They didn't know their names, but they could feel them, protecting, watching, remembering. Somewhere deep beneath those waves, a faint hum still lingered. A whisper in the dark, gentle and eternal. "Courtesy ends, but hope does not." And so in the heart of the galaxy, where once there was fear, now there was light. Humanity had vanished from sight, but their presence lived forever in the stars. They had become the guardians, the eternal keepers of balance, the quiet promise that if darkness ever rose again, the light would return, and the galaxy would remember the name that ended silence: humanity.